My life took an unexpected turn when my husband's young daughter, Ava, came to live with us. What should have been a joyous time, preparing for the arrival of our first child together, became an emotional storm that tested my patience, my marriage, and my sense of self. A love story that turned into a nightmare. I met my husband over 5 years ago through work. He was kind, intelligent, and despite carrying the emotional scars of a painful divorce, he was full of love. His first marriage had ended in betrayal. His ex-wife, after only 4 years together, had grown bored and cheated on him repeatedly. Even when he discovered the extent of her infidelity, he tried to salvage their relationship, but she had already moved on, taking their daughter, Ava, with her. Not only did she leave him heartbroken, but she did everything she could to turn Ava against him. Therapy sessions, manipulative words, and physical distance, everything was designed to erase my husband from his daughter's life. He fought for joint custody, but the courts ruled in her favor, leaving him with only occasional visits. And then, just when I thought we were free to build our own family, fate intervened in the cruelest way. The uninvited guest. Ava's mother, in her endless pursuit of new relationships, decided to leave town and abandon her daughter with her elderly parents. They loved Ava but simply weren't capable of raising her. And so, without warning, this little girl, who barely knew her father and had been taught to hate him, showed up at our doorstep. She wasn't the innocent child I had imagined. Instead of adapting to her new home with curiosity or gratitude, she brought chaos. From the moment she arrived, our once peaceful home became a battlefield. She was rude beyond belief. She spoke to her father with disdain, barely acknowledging his authority. To me, she was even worse. She defied every rule I set, deliberately creating messes, scribbling on my books and paintings, and outright refusing to listen. But the worst part, the part that shattered me to my core, was her reaction to my pregnancy. A child filled with hatred. When we told Ava she was going to have a younger sibling, I expected some resistance. Jealousy, insecurity, those would have been understandable emotions. What I didn't expect was outright hostility. At first, I tried to involve her. I let her touch my belly, thinking she might feel some connection to the tiny life growing inside me. Instead, she slapped it. Hard. She did it again when I walked past her, a cruel and deliberate act meant to hurt both me and the baby. I tried to stay calm, reminding her that it was never okay to hit anyone, especially not a baby. But she screamed in response, her face twisted with rage, telling me I wasn't her mother and that I had no right to tell her what to do. Then came the final blow. One evening, I overheard her whispering to herself, her voice cold and full of resentment. She wished my baby would die. She wanted her unborn sibling gone. Finding strength in the chaos. I felt like my world had collapsed. How could a child, a 7-year-old, no less, harbor such malice? I wanted to hate her. In my weakest moments, I did. But then, reality set in. Ava wasn't a monster. She was a product of her circumstances. She had been abandoned, manipulated, and taught to see her father as a villain. She had never known stability, never felt true love. She had been left behind time and time again, and now she saw my baby as another person who would push her even further into the shadows. I realized then that I had 2 choices. I could let her behavior destroy me, my marriage, and the peace in our home. Or I could try to understand her, even when she made it impossible to love her. The path to healing. I started setting boundaries, not just for her, but for myself. I stopped trying to force a relationship with her and instead focused on creating a stable, structured environment. I made sure my husband was fully involved, no longer allowing him to stay blind to her actions. He had to step up as a father and address her behavior directly. We sought therapy, not just for her, but for all of us. It wasn't an instant fix, and truthfully, some days were worse than others. But little by little, Ava began to change. She's still difficult. She still resists me. But there are moments, small, fleeting moments, where I see a glimmer of something else. A child who just wants to be loved, even if she doesn't know how to accept it. This isn't the life I imagined when I married my husband. But it's the life I have, and I'm learning to navigate it, one step at a time. My baby will be born into a home filled with challenges, but also with strength. And maybe, just maybe, one day Ava will understand that she's not being replaced, she's being given a chance to heal. When I married my husband, I never imagined that our life together would turn into something so chaotic, so emotionally draining, that I would find myself feeling like a prisoner in my own home. What should have been one of the happiest times of my life, preparing for the birth of our first child together, has been overshadowed by a storm I never saw coming. My husband's past came crashing into our present the day his daughter, Ava, arrived on our doorstep. For years, he had been denied access to her, forced to watch from the sidelines as his ex-wife manipulated and alienated his child against him. Then, as if she had never fought to keep Ava away, his ex simply discarded her, dumping her with her elderly parents, who, unable to properly care for her, eventually handed her off to us. At first, I tried to embrace the situation with an open heart. She was only 7, after all, and she had been through so much. But I quickly realized that whatever innocence she once had was buried beneath years of bitterness, neglect, and misguidance. From the moment she entered our home, she made it painfully clear that she wanted nothing to do with me. She was rude, defiant, and entirely ungrateful for anything I did for her. I cooked for her, only to have her refuse my food and demand pizza and ice cream instead. My husband, once a strong and dependable man, became a weak-willed shadow of himself, giving in to her every whim. His idea of discipline was a half-hearted "don't do that again," which she completely ignored. I was left picking up the pieces, trying to establish rules in a household where my authority meant nothing. But the worst of it wasn't the defiance, the rudeness, or the manipulation. It was the outright violence. The moment she found out I was pregnant, she became hostile in ways I never could have imagined. When I let her touch my belly in an attempt to involve her in the pregnancy, she slapped it instead. The attacks continued, random, calculated strikes to my abdomen whenever I walked past her, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. I started walking around with my hands protectively placed over my belly, fearing what she might do next. Then, this morning, the cruelty reached its peak. Over breakfast, while sitting with both me and my husband, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I hope your baby dies." The words sent a chill through my entire body. My husband, ever passive, barely reacted. He simply told her, "You're a big girl. You shouldn't say those things." That was it. No real discipline, no serious conversation. Just another excuse for her behavior. I felt something inside me break. For months, I had tried to be patient, tried to understand, tried to love this child who seemed intent on making my life hell. But this was the final straw. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't continue living under the same roof as a child who actively wished harm upon my unborn baby. I pulled my husband aside and told him in no uncertain terms that I needed more from him. I needed him to take this seriously. I needed him to step up as a father and handle the situation before it escalated even further. But deep down, I already knew what I had to do. I am leaving. Not permanently, but long enough to protect my own sanity, my own child. I'm going to stay with my parents or my sister for the remainder of my pregnancy. I need peace. I need to feel safe. And I need to separate myself from this toxicity before it consumes me entirely. If nothing else, this time apart will force my husband to confront the reality of the situation. He will have no choice but to handle Ava on his own, without me there to soften the blows or play the role of the villain in her eyes. Maybe without my presence, she will start to see her father for who he really is, a man who loves her, who has always loved her, despite everything she has been taught to believe. And when I return, it will be with our newborn child in my arms. At that point, things will have to change. Therapy will no longer be a suggestion but a necessity. Boundaries will have to be enforced. And if Ava cannot coexist in our home without violence or hatred, then other arrangements will have to be made. I never wanted this. I never imagined that I would be in this position, feeling like the wicked stepmother while carrying my own child. But at the end of the day, my baby's safety comes first. My mental well-being comes first. And if that means stepping away for a while, then that is exactly what I'm going to do. Maybe, just maybe, this time apart will be the wake-up call my husband needs. Or maybe it will simply give me the peace I so desperately crave. Either way, I am done sacrificing myself for a situation that is beyond my control.